Hey there, ladies and gents, welcome back to the vlog. My name is Drew, and I hope you're having a fantastic day wherever and whenever you are. Today's video is going to be a little bit of a longer one, and I know that's not saying much because my videos usually run pretty long as it is, but I had the idea the other day to start doing a segment here on the channel called UNCUT. And these UNCUT videos are basically me telling stories throughout my life that hopefully may have some value to you, I should say. And the goal here is to first share some funny stories about my life, but as I'm sure you guys know, the channel is growing, which is, I'm super excited, and it's amazing to see all of you. But it's no surprise that I do create a lot of different types of content on my channel, and a lot of them, or a lot of the videos that I've made, are related to computer science. Some of them are related to projects and stuff that I'm working on. Some are related to mental health. Some are related to Asperger's and autism awareness. I don't really lock myself into one type of content. And so these uncut videos are meant to kind of give you some backstory as to why I'm interested in so many of these different things and why I make content for so many of these different things. And just in general, give you a little bit of insight into how my life has been. And I'm 26 now, so I'm not too old in the grand scheme of things, but I've been on some fun adventures and I've had some experiences, and I figure that hopefully I can share some of those experiences with you so that if you are a young computer science student, or maybe a kiddo with Asperger's or autism, or maybe somebody who just likes working on projects, or maybe somebody who just came to this channel for another reason, you can kind of get a backstory or get a view into how I got interested into whatever it is that you came to this channel for. And then maybe if you're not as interested in some of the topics, you can get a little bit of backstory into them, and maybe it'll spark your interest a little bit more. And these videos are more of a talking head style video, so if you want, you can put this up in another tab or just listen to me while you're working on other work or stuff like that. There's not going to be a whole lot of editing to these, which is pretty nice. Unless I just completely and totally fumble over my words, I may do a cut here and there, but no really flashy editing, nothing really to see here except me kind of sitting here and talking. And without further ado, let's jump into our first topic, and let's talk a little bit about how I got into the world of computer science and became a software engineer. Now, the portion of my videos that are doing really well as of this moment are mostly computer science related. There was the stuff that computer science majors say, tips to get into and survive in computer science in college, and I've had some other small videos where I talk about my life as a computer science student, and since then I've graduated. But I don't know that I've ever told the whole story of how I got into computer science, and so today's video is going to be all about that. And the story with me in computer science kind of coalesces with another big portion of my life, and that is growing up with Asperger's syndrome. So for those of you who don't know, I did grow up with Asperger's syndrome. I was diagnosed when I was about maybe 4 or 5 years old. I can't remember the exact age I was, but I can tell you how I was diagnosed. I was playing soccer. I was in a soccer league with a bunch of other kiddos, and whenever the kids would bunch in on me, I would kind of just shut down or get really upset. And my mom noticed that, and so we went and saw a specialist, and eventually came out with a diagnosis of Asperger's syndrome. And I'm going to do a whole other video about my story with Asperger's syndrome, and it's one that I've told many different times to many different people. I used to do talking engagements where I would talk to teachers and parents and kiddos with Asperger's and autism, and it was really rewarding. I really enjoyed doing that. That was back in my high school years, and I haven't really done an engagement like that since then, but maybe I'll get back into it one of these days. Anyhow, getting back to the story of computer science, my story with computer science coalesces a lot with my story with Asperger's. And what I mean there is that when I was growing up, for those of you who don't know Asperger's syndrome, it's part of a host of autism spectrum disorders, and it's on the higher functioning end of autism spectrum disorders. Not to say that high functioning and low functioning kind of carry some weight to it. It seems like people with low functioning autism are just not at all consolable or able to do anything. And sadly, in some severe cases, that is the case, but I want to reiterate here that it is a spectrum. There are more high-functioning forms of autism and there are more low-functioning forms of autism. But the lowest form of functioning autism or the lower functioning autism doesn't necessarily mean that the person is completely unable to do anything. They can usually get along somewhat well if they have the right intervention and the right help. And sadly, there are some cases where, it is really hard for those people to acclimate, but I just really hesitate to talk about low functioning autism because I think a lot of people view it as like this person has no hope or no help, and that's just not the case. But that's another discussion for another time. So let's talk about high functioning autism, Asperger's, and what that is. So the high functioning part of it means that generally when the person is well adjusted or they've gotten the right interventions and the right help, it's very, very hard to tell the person has Asperger's because I look pretty much like a normal human being, or at least I hope I do. And I think a lot of people, when I talk to them today and say, hey, I have Asperger's, they're like, oh, wow, I had no idea. And that's kind of the best case scenario for high functioning autism. So you're able to go about your daily life. A lot of these kiddos go on to do very amazing things. They're extremely gifted academically. They just have a little bit of struggle socially. And so I fall into that category with Asperger's. So long story short, what I like to tell people is that when God put me in the oven, he gave me 2 parts analytic, but half a part social skills. So I had to go through it. I had to relearn a lot of social skills, which were sometimes just innate, as I understand it, for other people. So that's that part of it. And so being that I grew up and I didn't really get along with kiddos that well when I was younger, when I was in elementary school, I didn't really get along with kids and I kind of did my own thing. And I really gravitated towards computers because computers, they're kind of a one and done sort of thing. So much so, it's funny that I say one and done because binary ones and zeros, but computers are very, at least right now, they are very explicit and they are very straightforward. They're not sarcastic. You don't have to understand like nonverbal cues or that sort of thing. You either get a yes or a no, a true or a false, a 1 or a 0, or data or no data, on or off. And so that really resonated with me because I didn't have to worry about the social aspect of it or interacting that sort of way. So it's kind of hard to explain, but that's how I frame it for people. I got close to computers because they were a little bit easier to understand than kids my age. And naturally, with every kiddo who plays with computers, you usually start out playing video games or some fun little thing on the computer. I'm trying to think back to, I remember playing the original Age of Empires. My dad had the original Age of Empires, and we used to sit up at night on Friday and Saturday evening. He would play, and I would just kind of sit there and watch. And I think one of his fondest memories that he told me about that I later kind of went back and I had to dust it off, but I remember doing this was I would play the game, and there's a scenario editor in Age of Empires. And by the way, for the time that it came out, I think Age of Empires came out in like 1999 or 2000. That was pretty cool. Scenario editors, like being able to not only have a game that has an engine and scenarios and AI and everything like that, but also be able to open up the engine and let other people use it and script it and things like that from within the engine that is running it. That was really cool. Or at least now that I think back to it, I'm kind of realizing it right now. That was a pretty big deal. That's a technological feat, especially given that time. But getting back to the idea of the scenario editor, I used to play and I would like set up little scenarios. I would build like a pit and put a bunch of enemies in there, and then I'd surround it with catapults and have all the catapults fire on them. Or I would have just like one uber unit, and then I would put like a bunch of little men and see how many men he could fend off. And hours of fun just sitting there in my little sandbox and putting stuff together and putting little scenarios together and having my little guys fight each other, and it was a lot of fun. And that was one of the first video games that I ever played. And then I remember one of the first consoles I ever got was a Game Boy. I remember having a purple Game Boy Color that my mom got me when I was maybe about 6 or 7 years old. It was a big deal. Like, she called my dad, she's like, guess what, your son's the new owner of a Game Boy Color. And I thought it was really cool. I got Super Mario Brothers. That was a really cool cartridge because it was clear, so you could actually see inside and see the circuit board and all the stuff on it. I also had, what else did I play on Game Boy? Super Mario Brothers. Why am I blanking out on this? I guess Super Mario Brothers was the most creative one that I came out, or I could remember. I remember one time I was at my sister's dance studio. My sister did dance for a little bit, and there was another person or another kid that had a Game Boy Color, and I creatively borrowed one of his games one day. I don't know how I rationalized it to myself, but the kid was scurrying around. I was like, "Hey, have you seen my game? Have you seen my game?" I'm like, "No." And I had it in my little Game Boy carrier, and I just didn't show it to him, and he was totally distraught. And I feel really bad about it because I basically lifted this kid's game for a day. But then I came home and I told my dad, and he's like, "Oh, you can't do that." So I returned it the next day. But I remember it was like a Tasmanian Devil game or something like that, Looney Tunes or something like that. It was not a top AAA Game Boy Color title because, you know, there was AAA titles that came out on the Game Boy Color back then, but just the campiest little game. And you're a kid and you just really want to play that game. You don't really think of the ramifications. So I creatively borrowed, or I basically stole this kid's game for a day, but I returned it the next day. And so I felt really bad about that, and I feel really bad about it to this day. So hopefully karma has paid up for that occasion, and if I ever came across that person ever again, I don't know that I would recognize them, but if somehow I did, I would definitely try and pay it forward, or seek to recompense my my previous regressions, or transgressions. Transgressions is the word I'm looking for. So I had a Game Boy Color. Whenever I would get frustrated, I would bite the top of my console, so there was a row of bite marks on the top, and my mom's like, "Hey, don't do that," because obviously if you break the LCD or something like that, you could short the circuit and it could be really bad. And so just a little thing that I used to do when I was frustrated at the game. If I missed a level or if I died, I would bite the top of my console, not too hard, but enough to just like get my frustrations out. So I had my perfect purple Game Boy Color with a row of bite marks on the top. Yeah, that was a fun little story. And then my first console game, or like console, like TV console I got, was a Nintendo 64. And I remember playing a lot of games on Nintendo 64. I played Ocarina of Time for months. And it's funny that I look back at it now, because Ocarina of Time is like a maybe 10 or 15 hour game if you're playing it at the pace that a kid would play it at. But I spent hours, days even, playing this game, just running around. And I remember one time when you transform into Adult Link and you're in the Temple of Time and you walk outside and then the market is full of redeads. Redeads just creeped me the heck out. And so I never wanted to leave the Temple of Time, and I eventually had to have one of my friends come over and get me out of there and take me to the Dompe race so I could get the hook shot and get to the Sacred Forest Temple so that I could learn the Minuet of Forest, and then I could warp out and never have to walk through the market square again. So that was one of my favorite memories on Ocarina of Time. Had Super Mario 64, amazing game. Super Smash Brothers. What else did I play on 64? Those are the three main ones: Super Smash Brothers, Super Mario 64, Ocarina of Time. I never owned Majora's Mask, but that same friend that came over and rescued me from the Temple of Time, he had Majora's Mask, so I'd go over and play with him every once in a while. And so that was my first console. And then after that, I got a GameCube. That was a big step up because we went from like 240p to 480i or 480p. I can't remember the native resolution of the GameCube, but it was a big step up. And we had these discs now, these little mini discs, and I remember playing Super Mario Sunshine. That was a fantastic game, probably my favorite one from the entire franchise. And The Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess came out on GameCube a little bit later. I remember playing that. So yeah, the story goes on and on. I could sit here and list every single console that I have, but it kind of gets away from the conversation that we were talking about. And then one of my first encounters with like competitive gaming was a little game called Halo. And again, that same friend that I would go over to their house and play Majora's Mask, he had Halo on his computer and we would play with his dad. They had like a LAN connection and everything like that. And we weren't cool enough to operate the then operational GameSpy Arcade, which was the online component or the online service that Microsoft used to enable online play on the original Halo. So we had to play on LAN. And I remember the big neon green GameSpy Arcade logo, and it was really cool looking. It's like, wow, we're in the big leagues now. We can go play with other people online if we want to. But networking back then and online games were not as robust as they are nowadays, and a lot of the net code that allows for modern online gaming experiences wasn't there at the time, so it required a lot more. And so we just didn't have the know-how, so we played on LAN and had a little fun shooting rocket launchers on Sidewinder and little mini games and stuff like that. So that was one of my first encounters with competitive games, which will come into play later down the road when I talk about where I am today. But getting back to that, so played a lot of video games growing up. And eventually I started to get bored of a lot of games, and so I started to think about how can I modify these games or make them a little bit more fun. And I remember I started looking into just like little game hacks, real script kiddie stuff. Like I remember there was one program, it's probably still out there, called Cheat Engine, which is a basic memory index and editor. So you attach it to a process. In this case, it could be your internet browser if you're playing a Flash game, or the standalone application if you're playing like an online game or a desktop game. And you would basically be able to search all the memory addresses for values in hex. So you'd have to multiply everything by 8, I remember that. And then through process of elimination, you would enter a first value. It would give you a list of maybe 10 or 20 registers. And then you would do something in game. Let's say like you're trying to figure out how to get unlimited money. So you would like first get the current money that you had. Let's say you had $10,000 in game. So you would put 80,000 into the editor or into Cheat Engine. And then you would spend like $10. So then you would do like 9,990 times 8. And then it would monitor the registers as they change. And if it basically, it would narrow it down to the registers that change, and eventually you're left with one register, and that's your value. And then you could make it whatever value you wanted. You could change it to static, so it would constantly stay at the same amount. It was really neat. And again, just script kiddie stuff, like downloading a program, downloading hacks in a box, and then going and doing stuff with it. And so that was that, and I remember I played a lot of different games. Storm the House was one that was fun on Flash Arcade, or I think I played it on a Miniclip. It was either Miniclip or Newgrounds, and I would just like give myself unlimited money and buy all the upgrades, and it was super duper easy. And then Boxhead The Rooms was really fun too. I had a great time on Miniclip. That's where I found RuneScape too. I played RuneScape a lot from like 2007 to probably when I was in high school. I dropped off when I was in high school. In 2007, I was in like 7th grade, so that was probably a good 5 or 6 years. And yeah, I played OSRS not too long ago as well. I got an account and played on that for a little bit, so that was a fun time. And yeah, so I was messing around with games, freaking addresses, and doing little script kiddie things to these little games and keeping it somewhat innocuous because, again, I wasn't really hurting anybody. I was playing single player games, and I did play around with a couple multiplayer games, but never anything really extensively that would like overall have them send me a C&D letter or anything like that. And then that was that, and so I got bored of freaking games or hacking games, and so then I started to think, well, what if I made my own games? And so I downloaded RPG Maker, played around with that for a little bit. Didn't really get a whole lot out of game design. It's a special talent. It is probably one of the most artful endeavors of all the modern practices of computer science. Like, game design is as much part art as it is technical science and stuff, but it just wasn't for me. I remember my mom and I were driving one time, and I was talking about my career and my future, and she was kind of steering me away because I was between game design and security because I was really into security as well. She's like, yeah, you probably want to stick with security because you make a game, you work on a game for 3 or 4 years, and then it's popular for a week or a month, and then the next AAA title comes out, and then you're back to the races again. So security had a little bit more longevity in it, and that's what I kind of decided. But we'll get to that in a little bit. So, lots of playing games, lots of creatively winning games, lots of making my own little games. And then I got into high school, and I didn't really study a whole lot of computer science when I was in high school. A lot of the stuff that I was doing was kind of on my own. And when I was in high school, I remember going through a couple different phases of interest. I wanted to do law my freshman year. I wanted to be an attorney. I remember that. I kind of always had an inkling that I wanted to do medicine or maybe be a doctor. And so high school was kind of hit or miss. I had a great time in high school, but there's not a whole lot in the tale of how I got into computer science that happened in my high school years. I was still playing a lot of video games. I got an Xbox 360, and obviously online play was a little bit more fleshed out then. Still nothing compared to what we have today, but it was a little bit more fleshed out, and there were these little rumors that were going around that if you were really good at Halo, or if you were really good at Call of Duty, or any of these other games, you could join a team, you could go off to these conventions and win thousands of dollars. What would eventually become, that was the seeding of a fledgling idea that eventually became modern esports. And when I was playing, I played with a bunch of friends and stuff like that. I wouldn't say I was at a pro level or anything like that. And even at the time, this was around 2010, 2011, I don't think the scene was as fleshed out as it is today. However, 1 year after I graduated, 2012, MLG Dallas 2013 happened, which is widely accepted to be one of the biggest inflection points in modern Call of Duty history. So that was a big time. And it was really cool to think about it because I live in Dallas. And so no more than now 7 years ago, history was being made in the world of esports down at the Kay Bailey Hutchinson Convention Center, which I've been to multiple times. I went to DreamHack Dallas there 2 years ago. I did a video on that, by the way. You can go check it out. And that was a blast. That was so much fun. And I've been to the Kay Bailey Hutchinson Convention Center for other reasons, but it's hallowed ground. And it's funny because I go back and I watch like the MLG like pre-match interviews and stuff like that, and the featurettes that they did for MLG 2013 Dallas. And it's like, yeah, there's like, I can watch they're doing an interview with somebody, and then I literally see like the outside awning of the Kay Bailey Hutchinson Center. It's like I've literally walked that sidewalk that they're standing on. So it makes this thing that's larger than life very in life, if that makes sense. Or very real, I guess you could say. And so, again, 2013, that was a year after I graduated, and I had no idea that was going on. I didn't really follow esports like I do now back then. So yeah, I kind of missed my window. I didn't really play competitively, and even then I didn't really have the skill for it. So, but that kind of sparked my interest in esports, or it planted a seed, like I'm sure it did for a lot of people from my generation. You know, you hear these rumors that there's that one kid in this one grade or this one class that, you know, took off today or whatever to go practice because he's a professional Call of Duty player or something like that. So that was really cool. And yeah, so graduated from high school in 2012, class of 2012. Shout out to all my Broncos out there, McKinney Boyd High School. Go Broncos. But anyway, 2012 I graduate. My first year of college was fall of 2012, going into spring of 2013. And then still was kind of fixated on pre-med. Did pre-med for a little bit. Wasn't really for me. Then I did pre-law for a little bit. Wasn't really for me. And I kind of had this existential moment where I had to sit down with myself, and I thought, okay, I'm in college now and I really have no idea what I want to do with my life. And so I did a little bit of soul searching, and I thought about it, and then I went back to those moments or those thoughts when I was like playing Age of Empires with my dad and playing Halo with my friend from down the street, and just all these fond memories, and how computers were kind of always there for me, and I've always really kind of clicked with computers. And that's why I say, whenever people ask me like, what should I do with my life, or what direction should I go in and stuff like that, I always say try and find something that you're just obnoxiously good at. It's almost like you're cheating. You're that good at it. And this is how I had it explained to me. There was another video that I watched around that time where a guy, really successful guy, I can't remember the channel name for the life of me, he explained it this exact same way. And so I, in turn, explained it this way. But yeah, think about something that you're just ridiculously good at and see if you can find that one thing and then make that your life's work. So I think there's two main pursuits in life. And this lines up with psychology really well. We're going to talk about our good friend Maslow and his hierarchy of needs. The first step in your life, the first thing that you should devote your life to is finding that one thing that you're just obnoxiously good at, the thing that you were quote unquote born to do, why you were on this earth. The second thing after that is to use that talent to help your fellow man or help humanity. Use your talent to not help you, but help somebody else. So it's a call to humble yourself, it's a call to understand yourself, and it's a call to do something with your life that isn't just about money or success or stuff that benefits you. You have to use your talents to help somebody else out in this world, or help the human race in some way. And if you look at Maslow, step one is self-actualization, which is finding out who you are. And then step two is self-realization, which is, Maslow didn't put that in the original hierarchy of needs that he wrote, but posthumously, a lot of people agreed that in his notes and stuff like that, that's kind of where his research was heading, so they added the extra step to the hierarchy of needs, and that is self-realization. So, yeah, find what you're good at. For me, it was programming and computers and just dorking around with machines, and so I made that my life's work, and I decided to do computer science, and the rest is history. So I think I'm going to do another uncut video where I talk about my experience with computer science specifically in college, because college is its own visage or its own video onto itself, and I really want to save that for another video. But let's just say, for all intents and purposes, I went through college. It was kind of a struggle some days because computer science is hard, even for somebody who has a lot of interest in it. For me, that's why it's important that you find something that you're obnoxiously good at, because you're going to have to stand the test of educating yourself in that field and becoming professional in that field, because there is a big gap in skill between somebody who does something for fun or recreationally and somebody who does something professionally and then make it their career and they get paid for what they do. So that will be forthcoming eventually in your life. And that's why it's important to find something that you really enjoy so that you can get through those hard days. So we'll just put college at that, with the promise that I'm going to make a separate video where I talk all about my experience in college and studying computer science in college and all the wacky stories I have about that, because believe me, I have a lot, and they're a lot of fun. But after that, I like to tell this story, and this is kind of getting up to present day, me starting mechanics with my best friend and all that good stuff. So throughout high school, I had a bunch of different jobs, and throughout college, I had a bunch of different jobs. My first W-2 job, I should say. So my first job ever, I was paid cash to work at a snow cone stand over the summer. It was a great time. I almost got fired. That was a fun time that I care not to revisit. But I'm repressing all kinds of memories here. But my first W-2 job, my first official job, I worked at a movie theater. That was a lot of fun. That was one of the best jobs that I ever had. And then after that, I went and worked tech support for that same theater chain. That was probably the worst job that I ever had. Easily one of the worst experiences of my life. But at that job, I went on a lunch break one time, and I was at Freebird's World Burrito in Frisco, Texas, off of Main and North Tollway. I know exactly where it is, and it's still operational today. And I saw a lady that was struggling with an order list. She had all of her friends write out an order list. And it was clear that she was struggling because it was hard to read handwriting and everything like that. And she just basically was sitting there struggling, and I started to think, maybe there's a better way. So I came home, and I downloaded the Android SDK kit, and I started working on just a little app that would help people make online order lists with their friends. And then my mom walks in, and my mom's very much the realist in our family, so she was always making sure that my ideas were grounded and making sure that my expectations were properly managed so that I wasn't prone to flights of fancy that would later disappoint me. And she's sitting there, and she's like, "Hey, what are you working on?" And I said, "Oh, I'm working on an app." And she's like, "Well, what does your app do?" And I'm thinking, okay, here it comes. She's gonna shoot me down, or she's gonna have one little thing that's gonna say, this isn't gonna work out, or realigning those expectations. And I said, oh, it's an app to help people organize online order lists and stuff like that. And here it comes. I brace for impact mentally. Oh, I think that would be really cool. I would probably use that with my friends and stuff like that. And then my eyes got to like the size of softballs, and I was like, holy shit, like mom just gave me her blessing. She never does that. Like, this idea is probably worth pursuing. And that idea eventually grew into Food4Group, which was a e-commerce and online ordering platform that we developed. We didn't really do online ordering lists. We kind of pivoted away from that, but instead we developed a platform of e-commerce and online ordering solutions to help small businesses and undercut the competition of other digital food services out there. And try as we may, Food4Group was a big undertaking. It took 5 years of development. I learned a lot about web applications development, most of which I didn't learn in college, by the way, so that's another discussion for another time. I learned it on my own. And food and beverage is such a tricky industry. The people that work service industry are diehard loyal. Some of the most amazing people you will ever meet. They will be in your corner. If you earn their respect and you earn their loyalty, they will be in your corner until the last dying breath. But the industry is also very insular. So if you don't get along with somebody else, then it kind of spreads and that sort of stuff. So it creates this climate where it's very much like you have one shot, and you've got to kind of navigate these waters really carefully. And there's a lot of responsibility on the part of a service provider, a technical service provider, somebody like us that does e-commerce for a restaurant or for a small business. There's a lot of responsibility, and there's a lot of liability there, because you're talking about people doing sales and stuff like that, and their livelihood and their business. So it's a very stressful environment. There's a lot of technical overhead, and I'm sad to say, well, not too sad, but we kind of had to move away, or we kind of had to spin Food4Group down a little bit, because we just didn't have the resources at the time and the place to make it all work. Does that mean that Food4Group is going away forever? Absolutely not. In fact, we kind of put it on a shelf. And until there's a time where we have the team and the resources to deliver on the mechanics side of things, because we have a set of standards and a standard of excellence of mechanics that is extremely scrupulous. Like, I am so meticulous about a lot of different things, borderline neurotic, because I take pride in when I'm putting my name on that code, or when I'm putting something out and saying I worked on that. It has to be as close to perfect as possible. And we're not going to think of everything, obviously. There's going to be bugs and stuff like that, but I want to deliver an amazing experience, better than anybody else. I want it to be, there's Food4Group at the top of the list, and then there's everybody else. That's kind of the mindset that I have when I develop a lot of my stuff. Like, there will be us, there will be what we do, and then everything else is a compromise. So that's kind of my ethos for that. And to deliver on that in the food and beverage industry, you need a massive amount of resources. You need a sales team that's doing regular check-ins and account management and stuff like that. You need a team of devoted hardware and software people, because a lot of this involves hardware, because you have to do secure payments and stuff like that. We just don't have the resources right here and right now to do that. But we're very interested in Food4Group making a return in the near future, in the next 5 to 10 years. So we want to do it right. We want to do it the mechanics way. We want to put our creative spin on it. We just want to make sure that we deliver the right expectations and the right experience. And so as of right now, we don't have the resources for that. But what Food4Group allowed us to do was we developed a pipeline of e-commerce technology, and I learned a lot about developing production level code. And so when it came time to spin up our second app, Mechanics GG, which is a lot of fun and is currently in development right now, you can go check it out at mechanics.gg. It's an open site, by the way, and it's open for alpha right now. We're about to go beta here the next couple weeks, hopefully. Fingers crossed. Again, I'm very scrupulous about code, and if it's not ready to wear that beta badge, then we're not going to push it. But we're getting there, and it's kind of a 180 because the gaming community, the esports community, is just so supportive. And everybody that we talk to is like totally on board. They think it's really, really cool. They want to support us. They were like, hey, who can we show this to, and everything like that. And we've kind of had to pump the brakes. Like, hey, now, like, give us just a little bit. Like, we're stoked that you're excited. You want to show this to everybody, but we kind of have to keep this controlled because we want to make sure that we deliver that amazing experience. Because I took a lot of the culture from the food and beverage industry of like, hey, you've got one shot to make a good impression, and I've rolled that into our strategy for mechanics.gg. So we want to make a good first impression, and we want to make sure that those expectations are in line. So, but by and large, the interest and the hype that we get around Mechanics GG was a lot higher than Food for Group. So I already feel like it's going in the right direction. So knocking on wood, God willing, it's going really well, and I think it's going to continue to go really well. And it's an industry that I'm super duper interested in. I love the esports community. It's an honor to be able to work and be able to support content creator and streamers, and again, do the good work of helping them not have to use these backwards systems that a lot of these companies put out that don't really put creators at the forefront, but put the company and their profit margins and their advertisers' goals or whatever those may be at the forefront instead. So we're trying to position ourselves in such a way that we kind of bring that next wave of esports, or that next wave of legitimacy to esports, or at least be part of that conversation where the barrier to entry to get paid for your content is a lot lower, and potentially from day one you can start earning a little bit of money for your content. And if you have the support there, that people can start supporting you from day one being whenever you get onto our platform and everything like that. So I have to navigate these things closely because I am the CEO of a software company. What I say is kind of representative of the company, even if I directly say these are my opinions and don't reflect on my company. Even if I say that, you're still going to have some recollection that I'm taking this into the office and talking about it with my people as well. So my office being what you see around us, I don't want to have any facades about it. We don't have an office yet, and our team is really, really small. But one day, I'm really excited. One day, I feel it very close. We're going to get an office, and if you want to, you can support us through mechanics.gg/donate. And this is another cool thing about our company is we're doing everything grassroots. We're not taking any VC funding. We don't run ads. We don't sell data. We don't do any of those traditional tropes that come with the software industry. We want to make sure that we do it right. We want to make sure that we do it on our terms, and we want to make sure that we keep creative control. So you may be saying to yourself, Andrew, you're playing on very hard mode. It's nearly impossible to do what you're doing, but they said the same thing about me and Asperger's and me growing up to be a productive member of society. And I like to think that I did a good job of that. So doing the impossible is kind of my thing. That sounds kind of pretentious, but I've always said that it can't be done as the inventor's calling card. And so we just have to find a way to do it. And hopefully we can be a beacon that other software companies can follow, and you don't have to fall into like a predatory VC funding or give the keys to your kingdom over to an investor who only really cares about money. And not to say that all VCs are like that, but there's a stark number of them that are, and that's kind of problematic. Or you have to sell your data, which is one of the most atrocious practices. I hate that we've grown accustomed to it, or it's normal now that companies can sell data. It's a vile and atrocious act, and I could speak for days about the ethical ramifications and the shame that comes with doing something like that, and I don't know how some of these engineers sleep at night. But yeah, and then we don't run ads because I feel like ads are... There was a time and a place when you didn't have to monetize, or the opportunity to monetize your online content was very, very slim. Like if you had a website or something like that, advertising was really one of the only ways that you could make money. But e-commerce and selling products and stuff like that is so much more robust now that ads just seem tacky. They're everywhere. They ruin user experiences. It's like putting a for sale sticker on the Mona Lisa at the Louvre, or putting an ad for cigarettes or Domino's Pizza. Well, I love Domino's Pizza, but you get the perspective there. Like, having an advertisement next to a fine piece of art, and a lot of these sites and these applications are works of art in their own right. The software engineering and the technicality of a lot of these applications, it's artful, it's beautiful in the way that it goes, and to slap a big advertisement all over it just because there wasn't a way to monetize it at the time, that doesn't look good, at least not to me. And I'm not saying that all ideas are bad. I think that there are amazing founders out there who have incredible ideas, but they get down the road, they develop their killer app, and then they realize that there's no way for it to make money. So running ads is kind of the knee-jerk reaction, or selling data is the knee-jerk reaction. It's an afterthought. It's not in the founder's original vision, and all of the things remaining equal, if they didn't have to do it, they wouldn't. And so that's why I say it's kind of a scar on a lot of modern web applications when you sell data or you run ads, because I feel like there's other ways to monetize your platform. You just have to get creative with it. And so that's a calling to all of you engineers or you potential startup people. At the outset, you have this great idea, but definitely be thinking about ways to monetize it. And ways to monetize it does not include advertising or selling your data. So think about that. But getting back to it, Mechanics GG, it's an incredible platform. I'm really super duper stoked. And I don't want to, I should go back, and I don't want to knock any platform that does run ads. Like, if you have to run ads to survive, to keep money on the table, keep bread on the table, you do you. But I'm saying, if you have a choice to think about this, or you're in the design stage and your thought to monetize your content is, oh, we'll just run ads, or oh, we'll just sell data, that ain't gonna fly, chief. At least not for me. And think about it a little bit more. So again, people have to make hard decisions to keep people happy. You know, you get investment from a VC fund, they get really pushy and they want numbers or dividends or something like that, and then you kind of have to make a hard decision. And again, it's always a last minute buzzer beater shot or a knee-jerk reaction, like, hey, let's run ads or let's do stuff. So do what you got to do, but if you have a choice in it, don't run ads, don't sell data. It's, again, just in the same way that we're wanting to be that next step in the discussion about e-commerce and esports being legitimized, I think we're now transitioning to a next wave of startup engineers, a next wave of startup companies, and we could be that wave that kind of does away with advertising, or I don't want to say advertising as a whole, but like predatory ads and like ads that disrupt the user experience and ads that just make people mad. Like, I get on YouTube and I want to watch a 30-second video, but I have to watch a 15-second ad and then another 5-second ad. That's 20 seconds for 30 seconds of content. That's beyond infuriating to me. So there's that. That's what I'm saying. So let's be part of that next generation that maybe doesn't have to use ads or doesn't have to sell data and can correct these predatory practices that are currently in place. And that brings us up to the modern day. That's how I got into computer science. I hope that this video kind of gave you some insight, or you've got some fun little stories here. If you're in the field of computer science, why don't you share your story? Give me a little bit of the highs and lows of your career, how you got into computer science, and tell me a little bit about your story there. And as I mentioned, we're going to be making a whole video about college and what I did in college and how I survived computer science, because there were some days where I thought I wouldn't. And so that'll be a fun video for very soon. I'll probably shoot that one here in the next hour or so. I'm sitting down to make a lot of content, and then I'm going to edit it all and upload it and schedule it. So while you may be watching these days apart, they were all kind of shot at the same time because I've had this burst of inspiration. So with that in mind, I will wrap up today's video by sending you over to After Video Andrew. So take it away. Thank you so much, Current Video Drew. Hey guys, After Video Drew, here to say thank you so much for watching today. I know there's a lot of content that you can choose from these days, and it means the world to me that you gave me a little bit of time today to watch me ramble or get into whatever shenanigans I got into today. If you like this content, definitely leave a like down below. It helps out immensely. If you didn't like the video, feel free to leave a dislike as well. I learn as much from the dislikes as I do from the likes. And if you want to continue the conversation, leave a comment down below. I try to read as many comments as I can, and I try to respond to as many comments as I possibly can. So it's definitely a great place to continue the conversation. If you would like to support the channel more monetarily, then you can do so at the link down below, mechanics.gg/d/Ais4Drew. See, look there. Mechanics.gg is an amazing platform that allows content creators to get paid sooner and more fairly for the content that they create. And the reason that I am saying all this and I'm so hyped about it is because I actually work on the Mechanics.gg team. And so, one, I'm legally required to disclose to you that I work for that team, but two, I think it's an amazing platform. We built it with content creators in mind. We don't take any processing fees or anything out of the content creators' pockets. And you can do all sorts of cool stuff, including donations, subscriptions, and even showing your audience milestones and future goals that you have for your channel, all through Mechanics.gg. So be sure to check out the link below. Subscriptions start at $5 a month, and you can pay whatever amount that you like, above if you like. And every subscriber gets their name put on my desk, and you get your name put here in this list of absolute mad lads that I have right here. In addition, whenever you subscribe, the next video that comes after you subscribing, I will give a shout out to all new subscribers, and I will, like I said, put your name on my desk, and we'll do that on video. So another way to celebrate all that good stuff. And if you want to follow me on social media, you can hit my Mechanics.gg profile page. It's just mechanics.gg/Ais4Drew. It has the links to all of my social media pages, so you can click through to the ones that you want to follow me on, and then just forget about the ones that you don't. And we'll wrap up today's video in the normal way, and that is by me saying, always remember, friends, that you are wanted, you are loved, and you are appreciated. You have a special talent that nobody else has, and the world is waiting on you to bring it out. So muster a little courage, go out into the world, and change it. That's what the world's waiting on. You.